Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello everyone, welcome back. I have such an amazing guest this week. You will learn a lot. I did anyway. So let me introduce you to Prema Lee Gurreri. Hi Prema.
Hi there. It's wonderful, wonderful to be with you today and to talk with your audience as well.
Well, thank you. And it's an honor for us to have you here. So I could, read a very long bio of everything that Prema has accomplished and all her titles. But what I will do to make sure I don't butcher anything is let her tell us exactly. Prema, what's your title?
Okay. So I am many things, like all of you are many things. And I love that you even said that because that's a lot to, like, what are you, and it's a lot to squish ourselves into this little box. But for our purposes today, I'm known as a leading Vedic astrologer. I'm a consciousness guide and a business oracle. And really one of my deepest passions is to help conscious visionaries align with what I call your sacred wealth code, which aligns with your divine gifts. You have a lot of gifts, but what are the ones that really unlock what you're here to unlock as far as your purpose and your prosperity? And how does that work with your unique soul blueprint? You're all on this path, you're sensing it, you're feeling it, but if you can bring some consciousness to what you're sensing and feeling and have more clarity, you can really compound and make the energy very exponential that you are embodying and that you're putting out in the world, whatever your movement is, whatever your message is. And if you're someone who doesn't, isn't in that realm of business, or I'm sure you're at service in some way. And again, when we can connect those dots of what we're really supposed to be doing and what we sense and what we want, then we are just, more embodied and more powerful. We can make more of a difference. But beyond all that, we can be happier. We can feel more fulfilled.
I love that, it's a beautiful answer, by the way. See, people, I could have never said all of this. So, but I love that you said, it could be for business or whatever your service is in life. And I do feel that often I'm thinking about stay-at-home moms and, sometimes when we put the tag business on it, they feel like, oh, well, I don't have a business and whatever. But if it's you listening right now, you do have a very important business, which is running a family, a house, the logistics and all of that, and wearing 24 different hats. So I know that for me now, when I think stay-at-home mom, I also think, it's a huge business. So you're the CEO of a complex organization where people don't want to cooperate.
Isn't that so true? And I've raised 4 kids, so I totally get it. My youngest is turning 31, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, they're still very much in my life, and they still let me parent them to some level. But this whole, I think maybe we need to reframe this whole thing of stay at home mom, because, hey, you're a mom and you're managing a household and you're choosing to, it's really a purpose. Like I know for you, Caroline, it's part of your purpose, part of my purpose still to be a mother. And those of you who are focusing as your main purpose right now, as being a mom, oh my gosh, society has discounted that so much. And I was lucky enough to organize my life. So I was home with my kids when they were very young and was able to work some, but as they were more in school and stuff, then that's when I really took my business out in the world much bigger. But you are, it's a lot, it's so much to manage, not just a household, but like all the emotions and, all the guiding light that you get to be. And all you working moms, you're doing double duty too. And so anyway, being a mom is a big deal.
Yes. So, and I'm glad we did that little side note because it's totally, It's deserved. And although two of my kids are adults now, I still have three kids. And it's funny because my dad used to tell me, little kids, little problem, big kids, big problems. And I was just like, whatever. He has no clue what he's talking about. You know, when my son was like one, I was just like, he has no clue. Well, he was right. So, back to our subject here. We're talking about our sacred wealth code. And you will probably understand as we go why we made that side note because, you know, when we talk about wealth, and Prema sent me a beautiful copy of her book that I'm absolutely loving. And that too, I want to get back to how she structured her book. But before that, you know, knowing your sacred wealth code is not only if you have a business. And I love how Prema really, you know, right at the beginning of the book talks about wealth is not only money. And it's, you know, I think that as a society, when we talk about wealth, right away, we think, what's their net worth? How much money do they make or whatever? But describe really what is a sacred wealth code.
That's beautiful. I'm going to back up and describe what I believe wealth is. And this is my opinion. I do derive it from my years of spiritual study and living on this planet and from Vedic astrology, because that is one of the ways that I use my intuitive sense to decode myself and others, that wealth really is everything you need to fulfill your purpose. And that looks different at different times. So yes, money is this common currency of exchange that we have, but it's energy. And but it's also your relationships. It's the knowledge you need to acquire. It's the resources you need to acquire on any level to do what you've come here to do. And that's going to look different at different times in your life. Your underlying purpose may be the same, but the expression of it may be now more, you have little kids and you're more in that mom zone. You know, maybe you have your own business and it's expressing that. Maybe you're coming out of all of that and like, what do I do next? So this wealth is whatever you need to fulfill your purpose. The essence of what your sacred wealth code is, looking through the eyes of Vedic astrology, and there's Vedic astrology, let me just tell you what that is, and that'll help too. So Vedic astrology is the astrology of India. It's 6,000 plus years old. It comes from the Vedas. Those are some of the oldest spiritual texts. Now, most of you probably are aware of what Ayurveda is. Deepak Chopra brought Ayurveda to the West. Ayurveda means the science of life. It's how we holistically take care of ourselves. Jyotish is the word for Vedic astrology in Sanskrit, and it means the science of light. So through Vedic astrology, we're looking at how the planets animate your light. Let's put it that way. Your soul choices, your challenges, your gifts. And the Sacred Wealth Code is based on a scientific principle in Vedic astrology, and it's where your purpose and your prosperity planets either intersect or how they're arranged. And what's so beautiful about that is, after years of looking at this and after my own dark night of the soul, what I found out was that this is where your highest value gifts are. Now, you have a lot of divine gifts, but your highest value gifts are the ones that when you use those gifts, they unlock something in the world that only you can unlock. And you are in turn make a difference that you're here to make, but you also recapture and reclaim the energy from that, be it money, relationships, whatever your soul is needing. Because like, if I back up to the very beginning of my book, I tell my story, but then I really get you into, it's a workbook. What is your wealth dream? And then what's your purpose for wealth? And when you know these things, it really is very freeing that what you desire for wealth may be very different than someone else. Maybe for someone else, it is the car, the house, and several $1 million in the bank. There is nothing wrong with that. Everyone's wired different. Maybe for you, it's having enough money for your kids saved in college, and for you to have the freedom, to do whatever it is or travel wherever you want to go. It's very different for each one of us. So it's really good to honor how you're wired up for wealth and to know what gifts you're being called to use and what gifts at this particular time you're being called to use. And that way you're in sync with your soul blueprint. And when you feel that sort of click in for you, you can detach from what you should be, because I guarantee you there's a lot of cultural programming you've been programmed with, and that's coming at you in every moment. And it really jams our circuits for us really being who we are and who we're meant to be.
Beautiful. Like, I could step aside and just let you talk for hours.
No, this is the conversation, and you have beautiful things to say.
Yes. And one thing that I find so interesting is that, like I was telling you pre-interview, I've been on a journey of really finding myself and getting to know myself and better myself, especially in the last 10 years, doing a lot of self-development. And you get to points in your life where you're like, okay, I got it figured out. I know. And only to find out you don't know, because then you meet someone else who approaches it like in a different way that you didn't know. Like exactly when you made my sacred wealth code, I was looking at it and there's things that were making total sense, because clearly I've been living my own life for a while. But, there's some that I was just like, oh, that's it, And for me, it's kind of weird to say, but I struggled for years and years and years. And it's probably only in the last 2 years that I can actually say that I kind of know my purpose. Because before that, my purpose was to be a mom. My purpose was to be a daughter. My purpose was to always be the title for someone else. But really, when someone would ask me, when you have those experiences that someone sits you down and really is like, but what's your soul purpose? And you're like, I don't know. And I felt so lost because I couldn't put it on paper. And when I read the wealth code that you made for me, it felt like I should have read that years ago, and it would have probably really helped me more, put me on the right track. But talk to us a bit about when you develop someone's wealth code, and you're welcome to use little really nice examples of mine. Only what makes me shine.
Okay, so we're going to unpack all that. Let's back up just a little bit. Mm-hmm. I want to just tell you a little bit about where the Sacred Wealth Code came from. As I said, in my years of study, I had a yoga center. I was teaching yoga. I trained teachers. I had a big, beautiful sort of a little bit before its time, like I wanted to stream classes before streaming. I'm aging myself, but before streaming was a thing. So I did some stuff with the local TV, but I taught a very heart-centered yoga. My center was called Yoga and Beyond, the yoga of life, because I believe what we were practicing on the yoga mat and all the spiritual practices we were doing, that was just a practice for real life. And then, we need to live that. So I really thought I was on purpose. Speaking of purpose, I really thought, okay, I'm doing my thing. But I was wearing too many hats. And in that, it all kind of came crashing down on me, because even though I had a 6-figure business, not enough of it was coming to me. So just to cut the story, just really condense it into an elixir, I tried a lot of things to turn the center around. I had it for 5 years. I had a beautiful community, but I was the one who was really carrying the load of it all. Lost my marriage during that time. The debt was starting to pile up during that time. And I got the tap on the shoulder, or the 2x4, really, that I had to let this all go. And before that, I was like, oh, but I'm doing my work and I'm letting go. And I had to let the building go. I got that just so loud and clear. I had to let the whole center go. So I was in a dark night of my soul, and I went to my knees, and I stayed on my knees and vowed to until I figured this thing out, because that was hard to let that all go. And in that, and diving into my own chart and clearing some beliefs, I realized, I was off purpose with my sacred wealth code a bit. And I was stepping in some of my other gifts that really aren't my highest value gifts. I can run a company. I've been hired for that before. I'm a great administrator. I should have had someone else helping me in those levels of my business, because I simply I didn't have the bandwidth to do, train teachers, work with clients, all the things I was doing. So in that, the Sacred Wealth Code really came into a form that I could tangibly give it to others once I really figured it out for myself, because there is a shadow side of your Sacred Wealth Code. And that is where some of your gifts are locked up. A little bit later down the line, a body of archetypes sort of channeled in so that I wasn't just explaining someone's gifts that Mercury gave them or Jupiter gave them. These archetypes really showed up. And I love that because archetypes are a soul language. Now, with that, I was able to tell someone, oh, you have a great connector in your chart, which also could be an artist. It also could be a muse, but depending on where your planets are, when I look at it, okay, it's a great connector. So just saying connector or just saying leader for all of you, which are both in Caroline's Sacred Wealth Code. Of course, you know that she's a leader and she's such a beautiful heart and a great connector. A different story opens up for you that's personally relatable. Now, when you get your Sacred Wealth Code, you get a whole description about that. Or if you sit down with a reading with me, then I dig into it and I help you clear part of your shadow and such. But when you really can understand these greater parts of yourself in a way that you can see your gifts and you can see your shadow, then you're able to align better with them. And a lot of time what I see with people, like for instance, with Caroline being the amazing practical leader that she is, it's because of where her sun is placed in her chart, and it happens to be in a very grounded sort of practical. So she can lead from a place where she really gives you the tools of what you need to do and take the next step. She brings it down to the ground and makes it practical. She's not just about giving you an idea. She wants to build you a pathway to get there. On the shadow side, that also can overthink things and get a little distracted in the overthinking and wanting to get it just right before you actually do it. So, those are just a couple sides of, and it's good to know, like the shadow, when you, in my book, I even teach a whole process of releasing the shadow. When you realize your shadow isn't something, oh, there it is in the shadow. When you realize that your shadow is just a place in you that you cannot see, or a part of you that has been hurt, traumatized, and now is stepped back and is hidden and stuck in a way because of the trauma you've been through. And when you have a way to release that, you're basically shining light in the shadow and letting that part of you come out. The shadow pieces of us are usually places like a young child has been hurt in some way. And, you can just say, oh, get over it. But a lot of times you have to figure out why they're afraid, and then help them to see and have an experience to where they can integrate that and they can get their confidence back, and they can then use that part of themselves and they don't have to shrink back. So the Sacred Wealth Code really allows you to line up with parts of you that you're sensing and feeling, and helps you, give you the keys to unlock or know where you need to unlock parts of you that you just haven't been able to access.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing your journey. That wasn't my next questions, but
okay.
I really wanted people to hear your journey because, it's also a beautiful example of resilience and, courage and strength, all that you have. But I like one thing that you said in there is that, you were good at a lot of things. But when you're not aligned, and I have the same issue, which now, like just this year, I'm starting to really say, okay, I really love doing this, but how aligned is it with where I'm going? And I'm really good at doing this, but how aligned is it with where I'm going? And, I hit my low point 10 years ago by, I think, doing everything. And yes, I was seen as a superwoman. And now in 2022, I don't see it as a compliment anymore. I see it as you need help to really care more about yourself and align yourself properly to use your strengths, but don't kill your strengths. Doing it all is not, it's not heroic. And I think we were I think it's a belief that was placed into us, probably when mom started, when divorce started and things like that. And then you could see a woman doing it all. And then you were like, oh my gosh. But it's not, a character that you necessarily want to have. I know that being smart and not that if you don't do it, you're not smart. In my opinion, like for me, being smart right now and productive is really aligning myself where I belong and not spreading myself. Like I used to always be a web, attached to everything, doing everything. So I love that you said that, because that is what Sacred Wealth Code will also help you. And on top of that, if we have it read by you, there's a coaching, aspect added to it that, let's face it, a coach is crucial in anything that you do. That's why at the Olympics, you will never see an athlete without a coach. That would just be silly. So we should see it the same way in life. But I will let you go on this sacred wealth growth. I could listen to you for hours. You have such a beautiful, calming voice.
Thank you. I have to say, once when I had my yoga show when I lived on Bainbridge Island, that's an island across from Seattle. I live on the Seattle side now, just south of Seattle. There was an older gentleman. He had his overalls on. I was in the hardware store. He was behind me, and he taps me on the shoulder. He says, "You're the yoga lady, right?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I don't do yoga, but I really like to listen to you." And I was like, "Oh, that was just such a big, heartwarming compliment." So thank you. A couple of things I want to circle back to here, which is, I'm good at a lot of things. And I really go into this in my book and all my teachings and my programs that are not just about this, but it's really about the inner work that we want to do to become more conscious and align ourselves, or how we want to do that and take our business or our project or our book and out in the world. That we really have to examine what we're good at, because what we're good at, that word, were we told we were good at that? Were we conditioned to be good at that? Or is that really one of our gifts? And how do you know? Like, one of your gifts are things like you're born with a PhD in. Like, yeah, maybe you've studied around it, but you know it. Like, I'm an intuitive. Like, I was a closet intuitive psychic until I really got grounded in Vedic astrology. It was what I was highest paid for behind the scenes, even when I had my yoga center. And because of some of the beliefs and traumas I had with my family members and such early in life, I learned to keep that in a closet. So I had to, part of this dark night of the soul was coming out of the closet with all of my gifts. So really examine what you're good at. Does it make you feel fulfilled? Does it bring you joy? If you take away what you need to make money from it, or what the world thinks of you, is it really light you up? And then that's one of the keys to know whether it's something that's really, one of your gifts, or something you've become good at. Because, like, my father used to say to me, "Oh, we could put you in," and I love my father, we have a great relationship, but we could put you in New York City naked and you'd come out, fully clothed with $100. And, yes, I'm resourceful, but I stopped taking that as a compliment, because I would never want to have to do, I had to do too much of that in my life. Why, I don't want to have to prove myself in that way. As you were talking about being a superwoman, and I think that's something as the feminine, as women, we really face. In fact, when I had my yoga center, there was a sign on my door said "the queen of everything" that somebody gave me. And as a ritual, after my yoga center, I burned that sign, because I don't want to be the queen of everything. I only want to be the queen of what I'm to be the queen of, not everything, because that wears us completely out. So we have to really be careful of that, because this is all identifications. This is how we know we exist. We know we're valuable. And this is normal. I mean, our ego is part of us. We need to have a healthy ego, but where we're told that we have value. One of the things that I see so much, and I work with a lot in my clients and my programs around, is what we feel safe being seen for. And a lot of times we don't feel safe being seen for, like Carolyn, the great nurturer that she is, or the great merchant, and really a social merchant at that, because we were hurt in some way around that, or we've had some trauma. It's simple things like, a parent could say, "Oh, you can't be an artist, you've got to go to business school," or whatever it might be. So we put these parts of us kind of under wraps, and then we step into more of what we're good at or what's acceptable. I work on 4 levels. The first level is the intuitive level, and I'm going to do this because it's the upper chakras. The intuitive level, that's where I'm using the Vedic astrology. That's where I'm using that with my own intuition. And then down on the heart level, this is where I help you to see what's really yours, and where through the heart we can connect with all possibilities. We can tell ourselves the truth. We can also we can also find out what's holding us back, as well as what our heart wants for us next in stepping forward. So you're sensing and feeling everything. So I just want to help you to do that. So I create a lot of processes and ways for you to do that. And then on the next level down, so to speak, it's what's in your way. And I do a lot of belief clearing, a lot of energetic clearing, and I create a lot of processes around that for my clients in my programs, because if we could just keep clearing that path in front of us, it's much easier to step into who we truly are and create what it is our heart really desires for ourselves. And there's some processes around that in the book, and I talk about that. And then on the final frontier is coming down to what I call inspired action. We don't start with strategy first. We come down and actually move our feet, integrate our soul with the soles of our feet, and take those inspired action steps that our heart gives us to be able to be fully embodied, because it's not enough to know. It's not enough to know. You have to be able to be embodied and then be that. And it's not just doing, some of it's just is being, and also do what you're called to do. So I bet if every one of you think about this for a moment, like what's a hit, an inspired action that you got recently, or maybe it was a long time ago, that you still haven't taken any action on. And I guarantee you that that's something that you've got a block around, but it's like taps you on the shoulder. It costs you energetic currency. But what if you could just take one action, and that it's going to open up some more choices, and then you could take another action. And really the path to wherever it is we're going is one step at a time. Like people look at other people and go, oh my gosh, they got all this, or they took this quantum leap. Every quantum leap happens in my world, one inspired action at a time. So we want to just keep clearing the pathway so we can step into more of ourselves and step into more of ourselves. I'm going to take a breath here and talk to Caroline. And then I do want to talk to you a little bit more about the archetypes.
But yes, and I want to say that that's one thing that I absolutely love about your book as well. And we were talking about that pre-interview, the way you structured your book. Because if you really want to get out of it, everything that you can get out of it, you need to do the work as well. And, I know I'm the first one who loves to read like just before bed. So it's like, do not ask me to do anything. Like I just want to read, and then it calms my brain, calms my eyes, and I fall asleep. That's totally fine. But if you really want to get out of a book what you need, you also need to read it when you're wide awake and ready to do the work. And Prema really structured her book this way, because like she was saying just before the interview, it's like, we don't need any more knowledge. Like there's so much knowledge out there, I mean, you can Google anything basically now. It's how you integrate the knowledge. And I promise you that if you read the book and you actually do the work, you will be like 15 steps ahead already. And I really want to point the other thing that you said as well, because I've said it so often in business. And these days I help people, work on their dreams and really walking towards their dreams and have them becoming goals. It's one inspired action at a time. There is no overnight success in anything. When you see an overnight success, it's just because that's the tip of the iceberg, the surface. Just because all the work that was done by the person was all these one step, that clearly, are not interesting to share. So we don't share them, but we share it when we're, at the top and we do whatever the success of whatever goal we've set. So there's no overnight success. That's the other thing that I wanted to even put more emphasis on.
Yeah. So I'm curious that, you said in your Sacred Wealth Code that some things were like, oh yeah, that's me. And some things were like, oh yeah, that's me. But, it's not so right on the surface. So what were the kind of, or this a little bit of surprise?
Well, the leader part, I feel, was not a surprise, but I never embraced it either. So I've been told a few times, like, you're a born leader, because people follow me and when I think about it, like if we would be in school settings and we would, we would have a team and everyone was kind of like wondering what to do. I would take the lead and just say, okay, well, let's do something. But the image that I always had about a leader is someone who knows what they're doing and they're passing on the knowledge. So that's probably where I never saw myself as a leader, because I never pretend to know more than the others. I like to work with people and to really go get the knowledge of everyone, the strength of everyone, and all put it together. But I realized that that's also leading. It's not necessarily just passing on your knowledge, you know?
Well, and that's why it's like, you're a practical leader, and it's how do you lead? And we're all leaders somewhere, and it may or may not be part of your sacred wealth code. All the archetypes are within us somewhere. And that's another way we use the archetypes, like with the Oracle deck. It's like, just pick one, or go through the deck and find, oh my gosh, I need some more magic today. Let me really embody the magician. But we all have a unique way, like as a leader, and it is one of your sacred wealth code archetypes. And you're very much of a, you have a way of doing it. And then our archetypes work together in ways too. And you're very much of a connector.
Yes. Well, that too, you see, I always saw myself because, when you're in business, and especially, well, even when I was in corporate, I always had roles that I had a lot of networking to do. And networking has always made me so uncomfortable. Like, I remember one of the jobs I had was, I was working with CEOs and CFOs, and I would have the hockey tickets. I would have all the big event tickets that I needed to invite clients to and go with them. So technically, it would have been amazingly fun for everyone. For me, it was so much anxiety, just because I needed to take this person out and do networking. And, but I realize now with hindsight that I am a connector, but when you put the word with it, networking, to gain something out of it, I become so uncomfortable because I feel like a salesman.
There's pressure, there's expectation, there's like, you have to perform.
So in my mind, I wasn't a connector. But I am, like, even within my family, I'm the sister that will, if we all get together, it's because I organized it. If I don't organize it, it just doesn't happen, period. With friends, get together and stuff like that. So I am, but in business, I thought I wasn't. But I think it was just because I was not seeing it the proper way.
And because you're a regal spiritual connector, and this is because of the placement, let me back up a minute. So when you read the book, the book gives you all the archetypes, and it takes you through a process, the 4 pillars of wealth, and it takes you through some different processes that allow you to, and actually they're available, some of the processes free online. You can do them with me. But it brings you to a point of understanding your gifts and your shadows a little bit more. So then you can go, and I lead you through a process of connecting with your archetypes on the ones that you feel are really yours, and then how to go ahead and put them to work for you. When I give you a reading, it's like, boom, okay, well, here they are. But when you get your Sacred Wealth Code reading, there's going to be some words beforehand, and that depends on how it's placed. And sometimes two archetypes will be together, like they work as a team. So because you have this regal spiritual connector, it's in a place of your chart that is very spiritual. So there's you're working on a bit of a different level than if, like, your practical leader works really right here, but your connector works a little bit more in the energetic realm. Let's just put it that way. And so if you're going to put the pressure on that part of you to perform, that's going to feel really uncomfortable. But if you trust your own process and your own intuition on how you just, connect, there's a lot that happens for you just sort of energetically.
See how much I would have needed that 30 years ago?
Yeah.
When I was in kindergarten. But no, when I started my corporate career, I would have needed to know these things so much. And it's funny because big corporations that I worked for, they spent hours testing me into what's my personality, my color, my this, my that. But it's also practical, and it's just all business. And I'm thinking now, there would have been way much simpler ways to really understand my personality that would have helped me as well. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast, probably.
Well, and what's interesting about that, and all of those systems have their value, but they're dealing with how you're showing up now. They do their best to frame some of the questions to hit parts of you you're not aware of, but still they're not going for the soul language here. They don't have a way to access that. So they're useful to a certain degree of like who you can actually be and who you are being, as opposed to, who are you really? You know, that's a different level.
Yeah, and there's some tests, honestly, that I was told like, oh my goodness, you aced it. Like you were in our top scorer. And it wasn't necessarily my strengths. It was just because I knew the answers, because my logical side knew the answers, so I would give them. But it doesn't mean it was my strengths. And it doesn't mean it was something I liked or was comfortable in. So I think that that's where the whole gray area is.
Yeah, and again, nothing against those tests. You know, they have a place. You know, but this does go to this is a soul level. This body work.
That's absolutely what I love about all of this. And honestly, that's where I have grown the most in my life, is when I've put my logic and, you know, intelligence, I should say, aside, and really like, what do I want? Who am I? Because I do feel that, you know, you go to school when you're young and then they're like, okay, find a career, find this, find that. So it's almost like you're creating a path that this is who I am, but it's not necessarily who you are, because you go through life, you go through events, you go through, you know, traumas, joys, and all of that that will make you swirl anyway. So I know you know what I mean.
Well, but on that point, just real quick, is that I truly believe you are never off your path. Okay, and I'm talking about all of us. You're never off your path, but you may not be very well placed on your path. So you know when it's like when you're driving down the road, you're right in the part of the lane that just the road is smooth, you're all clicked in, you're totally in flow, and if something comes up, you're like, oh, your reactions are right there. And then, you know, when you're kind of off on the side a little bit, you hit the gravel on the side, or maybe you're really off in the weeds on the side. You're not off your path, but you're not very well placed on it. And as we get off our path, I believe the divine does its best to kick our feet in the right direction, and we have to bump up into parts of ourselves. So I could look at you, you could look at me and say, oh, well, that's what you want. Okay, you just need to go from here to there. But it's a very circuitous path. The soul takes us on this circuitous path so that we have the opportunity to see parts of ourselves maybe we're not aware of, bump up against ourselves, maybe need some healing work, maybe meet somebody that, you know, is going to help us another step down, or maybe take us to an extreme of what we don't want so that we become aware of what we do want. So you're never off your path, because your soul is always trying to get you back on your path, even if you're in a rough patch. And I talk about this in the book. In the fourth pillar is, there's 4 different pillars, but in the fourth pillar, which is your greatest challenges are sometimes the gateway to wealth. And we pick some soul challenges that we have, that, you know, there's unexplainable challenges in the world, let's face it. And there's soul challenges that we have, or we see other people have, like, who would choose that? On a soul level, we choose at some level so that we can develop different parts of ourselves and have a different experience of ourselves. So if we lean in and we embrace those things, whatever they're going on, and if you're in the dark night of the soul, and look, if this has been a real challenging last 2-3 years in so many ways, and if you've been up against it, or you are now, just realize that there's a part of you that wants to break through the other side. Have a lot of compassion for yourself, but be willing to ask yourself some of the soul questions and do radical self-care so you can find center, be really honest with yourselves, and move past whatever's, you know, really holding you back. The problem is a lot of times when we take it too personally, or if, and this, I tell you, strong women do this, if we just sort of buck the tide, we get really worn down after a while, and then we don't really have it in us to really step back and do the self-care or get the help from someone we need to, so that we can, your soul wants you to break through the other side of this, and we can evolve through the other side. And some of it, I just want to say, is unexplainable. Like, I can't say like why that happened to you, but when you work with it, just like if you think about a challenge that happened to you in the past that now you know the blessing of, we all have those, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if you're someone facing something now, or remember this for the future, like lean into that challenge, know that there is a blessing in there and you want to get it as soon as possible instead of having to wait 10 years to figure out what that is.
You kind of answered the question that I didn't even know how to ask. It's like very blurry in my mind on how can I get that in one sentence. But I know that there's some listeners listening right now being like, you know what, but I feel like I'm doing everything I can and it's just still poop. Yep. To stay in the right words. And I don't know how to get out of it. And I feel like I'm doing this stuff, but life just keeps hitting me in the face. I feel like sometimes we'll look at those people from the outside and be like, well, I can see where your pattern is, but you come into a place where you don't even know how to get out of it anymore. And I know that I'm hearing you saying self-care, and a lot of people are thinking what I was thinking a few years ago. Well, self-care is like going for a massage or stuff like that, but self-care is way beyond that. It's just like taking that 10 minutes a day to focus on you, like, because I know tons of women who are like, I'm too busy, I can't add anything else to my schedule. Like, yes, if I could go on a retreat for a week, I would, but I can't, I have kids, blah, 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 blah. But you can say that for 10 years in a row, or start taking that 10 minutes a day to just like, do these little steps. But what would you answer to someone like that who feel like they're trapped into...
Yep. So you have to get super squeaky clean with yourself. You have to get super honest with yourself. And that's why I'm very much a fan of, it's part of my gift set, and being able to ask the right questions and drop in some real backdoor to the soul questions. And in fact, let's just do that real quick here. Okay. So if you're not driving, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. I'll take you through this very quickly. In my book, I have a lot of processes that go to this place that take a little more time. And in fact, that's all my programs. So close your eyes, take a deep breath, and breathe in and out through your heart. We'll just take 3 deep breaths in and out through the heart. We want to bring our mind and our heart together. The more we can bring the mind and the heart together, the more we are really sitting in the seat of our soul. We can let our heart lead. It's the wisdom of your heart that you want to lead. And your mind is an amazing tool, but we want it to follow the wisdom of your heart. So we want to marry the two. So imagine you could just drop your mind like a beautiful gem right down into the very center of your heart, like your heart's this beautiful warm pool. And you're going to just drop that gem down through your nasal cavity, the top of your throat, the base of your throat, the top of your chest, and then right down into the very center of your chest. And you're going to land there. Just take a deep breath. Trust this is happening. I'm energetically working with you. And from here, we can ask some really deep soul questions. And with whatever it is you're facing right now, and it could be a little challenge, it could be a big challenge, it could be something every day if you don't feel very challenged right now. But in whatever it is that you're facing right now, the question that's going to go into your heart, and you're going to stay kind of in this tuned in state, and just make a mental note, or if you need to write it down, that's fine. What is it that my heart is just so wanting for me in this situation? What is my heart? Just like you would want for one of your children or your beloved. Oh, I so want this for you. What does your heart want for you? It may be something to open to relax into, to live more fully, or even to let go of. What's your heart calling you to around this particular situation for you? And just take notice of what that is. And then just go with the first thing that came up. And then we'll drop another soul question in, and that is right into your heart, just like I'm throwing a pebble into the pond of your heart, and you're just going to sit back and watch what floats up. If I really tell myself the truth, this is the backdoor question to the soul. If I really tell myself the truth, What's in my way? What's holding me back from this? What's stopping me from this? What my heart really wants for me. And just be honest with yourself. It's the first thing that comes up. Now, your inner language may be words, it may be a feeling, it may be an image. And just trust that. And you can make a mental note or you could write it down. And I know that I'm talking you through this quickly and you also are going to be able to pause this recording and listen to it. But I have one more soul question for you that's going to wrap this all up. And as you tune in and take a deep breath and tell yourself the truth, what's one inspired action I could take that would support me? And this is the key word, support me in moving past whatever it is that's stopping me or holding me back from what my heart wants for me around this particular situation. What's one inspired action? Now, don't try for this. Just let it float up. Maybe something very simple that you wouldn't have thought of that doesn't seem related. Or it may be, oh, that makes sense. Whatever it is, it's perfect. Take a deep breath. Make a note of that. And for anyone who didn't get an inspired action, just relax about it. Like when you lose your keys. And if you just relax about it, it's going to pop in sometime today. Okay. So just maybe something someone says, maybe something you read, just be easy with yourself. Okay.
Wow. That was such a gift. Thank you so much, Prema. And you said one thing while we were in this experience. Sometimes it's not a word, it's a feeling. And when you said, what's the inspired action you can take? I felt goosebumps, like literally coming. And I did try to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? Goosebumps? But I'm trusting the process. It's going to come to me. But it's clearly something that will make me excited and happy. I just feel like, yes, it can be a feeling. That's my whole point.
Well, and also one of the things that was happening for you, just so you know, is there's an energetic shift going on. You're really sitting in the energy, and that's a big energy when we're all holding it here. So sometimes things shift right out. But what I want to, the thing to do, so to speak, will absolutely drop in. And the thing is that you will know it because you'll have that same goosebumpy kind of feeling.
That's amazing. Oh my, no, I don't know what to say anymore. You are making me speechless. First of all, it's hard to compete with your voice.
You're beautiful with you talking about it. This is happening as magically as it is because we're both here.
No, but I just love it. I'm gonna listen to this podcast like so often. Prema, thank you so much. It was like such an honor to have you on. So if people want to reach you, I will put the information with the podcast, but can you also tell us where they can reach you?
Absolutely. My website is solutionary.com, spelled SOUL, which you'll probably have, but there's an easy way to get there, and that's just sacredwealthcode.com. That'll bring you right there. And you could grab the book, you can grab the oracle cards, you can grab the reading. There's also a beautiful journal I have with this that also walks you through these processes and walks you through a meditation process and how to tune in with your archetypes. All my stuff has some free online stuff that goes with it. And then if you really want a Sacred Wealth Code reading, or you want to take the Sacred Wealth Code Journey, which is a program that you can just download. It's like a course, and it'll really help you to go deep with this work. And then my Solutionary Blueprint is really sort of my mystery school. It's my whole body of work where not only we're working with the Sacred Wealth Code and moving past our blocks and really aligning whether we're an empath, whether we are working on our boundaries, how do we work with what's our purpose, all those things. And then as we align on the inside, and then how are we going to move that out in the world? And all that is on my website. Of course, I'm on social media, and that's at Prema Lee Gurreri, and in Facebook, Instagram. And I have a YouTube channel. I put Vedic astrology updates and other videos out there very regularly. And Prema Lee Gurreri, you can find me on YouTube. I'm sure the link will be with this, but I'm pretty prolific on YouTube. So make sure wherever you find me to say hi.
We will. Thank you so much. I always ask my guests this, but I feel like you gave us so much already.
Oh, ask me, just for fun.
What is the last thing you would leave people with? Like that one last thing of If you forgot everything in the podcast, remember this.
Trust yourself. That's really what the essence of the message that I want to get across is, that it's my purpose to live from the inside out and to teach others to do that. And that's all about really being able to trust yourself, trust your own intuition, trust what feels right, what doesn't feel right, trust that you are feeling this soul path, whether you know what your archetypes are, whether you know Vedic astrology, but you're feeling it and sensing it. So give yourself the time to really clarify that for yourself and to really understand your own inner language and move past what's keeping you from really trusting yourself. And you're going to feel that in your heart and in your gut, basically. So the more you can trust yourself, the more you can make choices that are your choices, not what other people want you to do. And you will more likely be on your own soul path.
Wow. And I don't know about you guys, but when she said that, trust yourself, like I became all emotional from the inside out, because this is one thing I've always, worked on and struggled with. And even when you do trust yourself, quite often you don't take the steps to actually do what you need to do. So if you got this same emotional reaction as me, it's an answer as well. But it's true. So Prema, thank you so much. To everyone here, thank you for joining us. And if you have any comments, questions, you know where to reach me, info@simplycaroline.com. I appreciate you, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Prema.
Thank you.